Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Design Shop talk. Happy New Year. My name is Samantha Mirabal with MECO's application team, and we're doing our Design Shop talk. We try to do these on a weekly basis to see what questions you might have and try to get them answered. If you have questions while we're live, we're both on Facebook and YouTube. Type them in on the chats. Don't send them privately. I won't see those until way later, maybe. But on the little chat, type it in. I've got another monitor over here where I'm keeping track of all that stuff. So let me quick check and make sure both of these are up. Well, it looks like, no, I don't want that. Facebook is up, and is YouTube? There, YouTube is working too. Cool. All right, good. So I'm going to jump into the questions that were sent in ahead of time. And like I said, if you have questions while we're live, please type them in. All right, so the column I'm working on is too wide for a satin. Can you show how to make it two side by side like this? Okay, so we've got a few ways we can handle that. And what's kind of funny to me is most of the questions that were asked, both through the form and when I asked for questions, are all related to this one item. So I just thought that was kind of funny. Okay, so if I have a satin stitch that's, let's say, 100 points wide, that's going to be too wide to be a column, like a satin stitch, right? So what do we do with that? So we can go into the properties, and over here there's auto split, so that's one option. That, depending on the stitch direction, it does some interesting things. Common auto split, that's another. Okay, so you can always do that. Or another one would be to add a split to it. Good morning, Sandy. Thanks for joining today. So right here, if I hold this button down, there's the hole, there's an insert split line, and then there's insert fill island. So if you do a split line, right? So if I say, all right, I'm going to do that, and I align there and align here, hit enter. Okay, so now I have escape. I've got two satin stitches next to each other, and everywhere the stitch crosses that line, it's going to do a needle penetration. Okay, well that's cool, but what if you don't want it to be that rigid of a line, right? So let's say you want it to have a little blur to it, right? So oh, I see what's going on. Let me move this around a little bit just so I can select it. All right, so if what you're wanting to do is to actually kind of select that line and be able to modify it and add a blur to it, if it would actually let me select it. All right. Oh, I did an example where I can't actually select it. There you go. So that line right there, so that's what I was trying to grab, but rather than me play with it, trying to figure out where to click, there you go. When it's on an angle, you select the item, and then if you select over that, it'll put a box around that item. All right, so right there you have a blur of the split line, right? So if that's 0, and hit apply, it's straight satin stitch next to each other. The more you do this, it kind of does that blur look along there. So adding a few, all it's doing is staggering the needle penetrations, which is what you saw here. So this isn't just a hard line, it's actually staggering it so that you don't see fabric underneath it. Okay, so you can use that same technique. So another question came in, well, how do I deal with this, this font to make it, this digitizing to make it a hat, where it's a little more interesting than just if I did this and made it a flat fill, right? So if I did a flat fill of whatever, even if I didn't have those split lines in there, or these guys, how do I make it look a little more interesting? So I was playing with it just to show some different things here. So on this one, I added the splice lines right there to split that. So it's one fill. Your stitch directions, I have 2. I set the properties to be the common auto split. That's where this is coming from. And then I put this guy, that split line down here, and added a blur along it. Okay, so same with this O. All I did here was, I'm gonna delete this one real quick. Come on, there. I'll delete it and just draw it again. So right here, if I say insert split line, left click, right click, I don't know. I just was playing with it, right? All right, so I added a splice line on there. Okay, well, what if I don't want it hard like that? Well, if I select it, I can say blur outline, right? So you can play with it to get different looks and blur that outline, and it'll make it look like two satin stitches. And then you can control where that is. So if you want it further to one side or over, if you want it straight in the middle, those sorts of things. Okay, so that is how this thing is created, right? You can either do the common auto split, add a splice line, which is generally what I end up doing, is putting splice lines along those. Okay, I hope that helps. Yeah, so that was this example over here. How do I do something that looks better than a fill? All right, so that's what looks better. That's a subjective thing, right? So what looks better to me looks better to someone else. It's going to be a different answer, in my opinion, and that's okay. We all have different things that look good. I happen to be a big fan of the split lines, so I kind of like this look personally. Some might not. That's okay, but you can go through and add add these splice lines along here. So if I'm going to do the E, all right, and then I can say let's have a stitch direction that way, and then maybe each of these this way. And let's make it a color we can actually see, because I can't see anything there. Then I can say, all right, well, why don't I do the same thing I did for the B and put a splice line down there. And then if I select that, I can blur the outline, right? Hi. Thanks for joining today, our autism crew. So that's it. Like I said, you can play with that and, see what looks good to you. You can move these around. You can just do it instead of that. Let's say you just did an auto split. So I go to properties, turn off auto, and come down here and do common auto and see if that's a look. Notice it goes this way. If you change the stitch direction, that will actually change where that goes. Okay. So you can also play with that to, see where it's putting the auto split. So that's an option there. Okay. So that's one way you can handle this. So dealing with the auto splits, adding splice lines and blurring them. Like I said, I like the blur just to avoid that hard needle penetration, like right there, where you end up seeing the fabric through it. Okay. All right. What other questions do we have? Other than OFM, what's the best file type to use? Well, OFM is native to DesignShop. It gives you wireframe outlines. So if you want the wireframe, that's what you need. But short of that, I use pretty much any file type. I don't know. DST and EXP are excellent. They don't save color information though. So when you open up a file, it looks ridiculous. It'll do things like if I go open, C drive, designs, legacy, there. So if I open up an expanded stitch type, it's going to come up in crazy colors, and it's always the same things, the red, green, that gold, blue, and it'll just do default colors because the file type itself does not save color information in it. So if you want files that save color information, it's going to be a JEF, HUS, an EMB, art files, PES files, and you'll notice even if you open up a JEF file and a HUS file, the colors will often show up different. So I often will just keep on opening different ones from the files I buy until I find one that's close to how I want to color it. That way I don't have to think about the colors too much. I don't really think about it too much because really you can use any format that you like. DSTs are kind of bulletproof, same with EXPs. Yeah, PES will sometimes keep original colors. So, yes, that is true. But yeah, it really just depends on whether it's important to you to have color information saved within the file or not, or if you want wireframe or not. If you're okay with expanded stitch types, then any format works. If you want wireframe, it's got to be OFM designed in DesignShop. Some people will give you OFM files if you send it out to a digitizer, and they'll give it back to you as an OFM, but it's just a converted file. So they saved from whatever software they used as an OFM, but it's expanded. So that's not really a useful OFM per se. All right, how to digitize hats for beginners. So we have a lot of resources out there on hat digitizing that I would suggest looking at. There's some videos um, that talk about it, but I mean, fundamentally, you've just, where's my hat picture? Goodness. All right. Fundamentally, you've really got to just plan out how you're digitizing it to think about how it's going to sew. All right. So when you're doing a hat design, you want to think about sewing away from anchored points, things that are, that link, Melco, seems strange. info@BroadwayEmbroidery.com. I think the link might be bad. Anyway, sorry, that link really confused me. Now I gotta go look at it. Yeah, that's email. Let's not do that. So you might want to change the link. Anyway, sorry, that really distracted me. All right, right here. You want to think about, plan out your work of how you're going to digitize it, right? So you want to go from things that are anchored and not going to move. On a hat, that's going to be the center seam of the hat. It's going to be the brim of the hat. Because if you think about it, this thing is often rigid, right? So it's a cardboard, there's a seam there. So if I'm sewing towards that, is there any where for this fabric to go? If I'm sewing towards this, no, it's going to create a bubble, right? So, and same with that center seam. If I'm going to sew from here this way, I'm going to be pushing fabric to something that can't move. So that's where you're going to get these bubbles and ripples in the fabric that you don't want. So you always want to think about sewing away from things that can't move, whether that be the center seam of a hat, the brim of the hat, parts of the design that have already been sewn. That's an anchored thing, because if it's already sewn, it can't really go anywhere. So you don't want to push sewing towards, you know, a filled area. Like if I have a filled area in the middle, I don't want to start out here and sew this way. Okay, so plan your design out thinking about that sort of thing. How can I build it so I'm going from center out, from the bottom to the top, and you're pushing out as you go. Okay, so that's kind of the most important thing when you're thinking hat digitizing, what to do. We did get you a link in the comments that you can look at on hat digitizing, but that's where to start, is plan your work so that it's center out, bottom to top. Good morning, Lorena. Happy New Year. So that's where I would start with that. Okay, check out the links that we have. Like I said, there's a lot of good resources out on the help desk area, and if that doesn't help, let us know and we'll do that. And it's the same with puff. So puff is a topic all in itself, and there's actually a ton of excellent resources. Oops, wrong website. Melco-service. Oops, there we go. So on this website, what I call the help website, where'd my thing go? There we go. You got this FAQ section. So you can always come over here and look for hat. Oh, wait. Puff is what I wanted. Puff. Come on, search. There we go. And there are a lot of resources out here, from setting up your machine. There are videos on actually how to digitize start to finish puff designs. You know, several presentations on that, how to use the puff alphabets. There are sample designs down here, how to actually set up your machine, things like that. But some PDFs that actually go through settings and whatnot. And then sample designs so that you can look at it. Okay, so I would definitely check those out, this article, because there's a lot of excellent videos already out there that you can take, start with. And if those don't help, let us know and we can always make more. I can go into it in more detail, but puff is something that you could talk about of how to digitize it. Talk about that for a few hours. All right. Auto splitting satin stitches. Like I said when I started, all three of these are essentially the same question. How do you create this? Which is what I covered to begin with. So those were actually the only questions that I had sent in ahead of time. Did anyone who's online have any good questions that you wanted covered? So I hope everyone had an excellent holiday. I'm just gonna talk in case someone's typing. We're starting back this week and plan to keep doing these every Thursday. So there are multiple ways you can always ask questions live. On social media, I'll post this little picture here, and you can always put comments on that of what you want to talk about. Or you can go to this form, which is, again, on that help site. So if I go to the help site, click on this, go to the DesignShop. The DesignShop one used to be right at the top. That's funny. There it is. It moved. Anyway, right here, it'll take you to the same form, okay, where you can type in questions ahead of time. I find this one to be good because if you have questions during the week, you know, in the middle of the night, whatever, you can type them in there and forget about it, and you don't have to worry about catching it. And on the next talk, we'll have that. Okay, so we'll have that as a option for you to come back and look at a later time. Any other questions before I call it a day and go back to digitizing 10,000 things? That's been my day today. Digitize, digitize, digitize. No? Well, I hope everyone had a fantastic holiday. I will be back next Thursday, so let us know what you want to learn, what you want to talk about, and we will try to get those questions answered for you. Until next week, I'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.